What is going on? This week, we're going to start a brand new series called Cursed Films, Part 2. Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I have the privilege of being a writer and podcaster here, as well as the director of our film festival named Horrific Hope. If you guys would like links and more information on this year's lineup, this year's sponsors, and where to get your tickets from, as well as links to our podcasts, social medias, and more movie reviews like this, and most importantly, our mental health resource library. All of those links are in the descriptions below. So I've never actually ever done a series on this channel before. And what a perfect time that Shudder has given me to do so. So Shudder is getting ready to launch their sequel series to Cursed Films from 2020, and I highly recommend that series. I love it, and you guys can check out my thoughts on the first two films, first two episodes of the series, which starts April 7th on the platform. But I thought, hey, I haven't seen some of these movies in a really long time, and some of these movies I have never even heard of or seen at all, and so I'm going to walk you through as Shudder is bringing up these movies. I want to talk about the movies that they are covering and why they are worthy of their legacy, worthy of conversation, and just a few spoiler-free thoughts on what either a long-time viewing or a first-time viewing is generated within me. And for their pilot episode, they are bringing in one of my favorite films, The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is actually a movie that I probably visit at least every other year, right around Thanksgiving time. I don't know, it was one of those movies that I grew up watching all the time with my grandmother, and it was just one of the first films that I truly ever fell in love with. I was really glad that Shudder kind of did this as their kickoff episode. As I said in my review for Cursed Films 2, it kind of breaks away the mold from the first season and kind of really deconstructs and makes it kind of like a less sad, more wholesome approach to talking about Cursed Films. So let's get into The Wizard of Oz. Alright, so The Wizard of Oz, if you guys don't know, tells the story of Dorothy, who is basically a country girl? I don't know how else to describe Dorothy. Sorry. And she basically gets blown away into this far-off world called Oz, and she's on a journey to get back home, so she has to travel the distance of Oz to go meet the great wizard, and ask for him to send her back, and along the way she makes some friends and learns some important life lessons. The Wizard of Oz is a lot more complicated than I thought it was. I don't really even know where to start with this movie. This is one of the very few musicals that I absolutely adore and love from start to finish. I absolutely love and cherish the musical aspects of this. I think that they are just some of the catchiest and just well-written songs that we've ever seen put on screen. The acting in it, really top-notch. I mean, there's a reason that we're still talking about this movie almost 80 years after its creation. And I know that there's so many different versions out there of this movie where it's like black and white all around. And then the more popular version that we see now is kind of like the sepia into color, back into sepia. I really value the look of this film even after all of these times, because I grew up also watching alternative classic movies with my grandmother, and we had the VHS, so we watched it in black and white a lot of the times. And then as I got older, the default happened to be the sepia color sepia. The movie looks stunning even from the late 1930s. The practical effects are amazing, and just there's a timeless quality about this. Probably one of the things that I love about The Wizard of Oz so much is its not only its timelessness, but also just its wholesomeness. This is a rare kind of movie that you can sit down to and show many generations this movie and still almost invoke the same exact reaction. Love that this movie is genuinely funny. This movie is genuinely wholesome. I adore the fact that I've seen this movie dozens of times and yet it still almost brings me to tears in certain parts. And there are some still genuinely creepy moments in this movie. If you guys haven't seen The Wizard of Oz for whatever reason, maybe it's just been a film that's just continuously been on either your shame list, or it's just a movie that you've just never gotten around to watching, I highly recommend The Wizard of Oz. It is a 5 out of 5 for me on the Rorschach rating scale. This movie is timeless. It's wholesome. It's catchy. It's emotional. It's funny. It just encompasses everything that you want from a movie. And its Cursed Films counterparts is equally also as intriguing as this movie is delightful. And this movie is now streaming on HBO Max, or yeah, it's available to rent on multiple platforms, but I highly recommend this movie. Let's jump into our mental health moment. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health out of the film or book which we are reviewing in hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health, but only for a few moments. I feel like this movie is such a classic story that by now, even if you've never seen it, you generally know most of the beats of this movie. Dorothy kind of has this ungrateful attitude in the beginning. Let me just remind you the character development in this. I'm sorry. Back to Mental Health Moment. Journey in the Wizard of Oz really gives her a dynamic clarity for how good her life actually is. Say that those of us that struggle with depression kind of feel the same sometimes. Before I go any further, I want to clarify in saying that a lot of what I'm about to say is coming from my own personal standpoint and personal journey, not necessarily speaking for the whole dynamic of those of us that struggle with depression. Depression sometimes feels isolating. It feels just absolutely, it just brings out the worst feelings that a human being can feel. When I was at my lowest with my own depression, I desperately questioned, what is the point of life? Why is it really worth living for anymore? And then 6 months later, I lost a friend to suicide, and I had an immediate clarity for how precious life really is. I don't say that lightly. I say that again, that was my own personal journey, but traumatic experiences like losing someone to suicide feels like almost kind of like a clerical thing where you kind of see things in a different light that you kind of didn't see before. The way that Dorothy has to travel throughout Oz, not only in hopes to get home, but also in hopes to kind of step away from the previous attitude or outlook that she had on life in the beginning of the movie. It really shapes it. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be a traumatic event. Sometimes it just takes willpower for us to say, all right, I want to see my life differently. So instead of relying on all the things that are going bad, I'm going to focus and fixate on all the good things that are happening in my life. Sometimes depression feels so suffocating that it takes a lot of willpower and a lot of strength to simply just focus on the good. For nothing else in this video, I would hope beyond anything else, if you hear this, and understand that you have value, you have worth, and that the world is a better place because you're in it. Depression is going to tell you the complete opposite of that. Also, at the same time, depression is also going to help you hyper focus on everything that is wrong in your life. And instead of giving into that, focus on the good things that you woke up today, you have air in your lungs, you may or may not have a job, you have friends, you have family, you're watching this YouTube video right now. I mean, that list just goes on and on, whether, or maybe it's not today, but focus on something that you're excited about, like focus on the fact that, we're getting another Fantastic Beasts movie or / Harry Potter entry next week, or the fact that we're a couple weeks away from unbearable weight of massive talent, or that just finding little nuggets of things to hold on to, whether it's the release of a new video game, a new card game, a new toy, a new console, just whatever have it be. Focus on the good in your life. And I would also encourage you to also keep a journal as well, because journaling really helps with that whole clarity thing. That's going to do it for us. If you guys, before we get out of here, if you guys need mental health resources, click the links in the descriptions below to check out our mental health resource library. Check out Cursed Films 2 when it premieres April 7th. And most importantly, drop a line in the comments below and share either your memories or your thoughts about The Wizard of Oz.